The galaxy was burning. Worlds that had stood for thousands of years now floated in silence. Their skies dark, their cities gone. Fleets that once stretched across entire star systems were vanishing without warning. Colonies screamed for help, then fell silent forever. On the Galactic Council spire, the most powerful leaders of the known universe gathered in terror. Their council chamber, a vast dome of crystal and light, shook with voices full of fear. "They are unstoppable," cried a Velen commander, his scaled hands shaking as he pointed to the flickering holograms. Entire fleets erased in seconds. "Nothing survives them," hissed a corps general, his insect wings rattling with panic. "Our weapons are useless. Our ships too slow." Across the chamber, the representatives of dozens of species shouted over one another. Some demanded retreat. Others demanded a new superweapon. A few simply wept in despair. The truth none of them wanted to admit hung heavy in the air. They were losing everything. Billions across the galaxy tuned into the Council's live broadcast. Civilians sat in fear, watching their leaders argue as planets burned. Mothers held their children close. Soldiers clenched their weapons, knowing they were powerless. Traders abandoned their ships. Hope was dying, and everyone knew it. One trembling voice spoke above the chaos. A frail counselor, his robes torn and his face pale, whispered words that silenced the entire chamber. "There is one species left we have not called." Every alien I turned toward him. He swallowed hard, his voice breaking as he said the word. "Humans." The room erupted in outrage. "Impossible," shouted a Zell noble, her scales flashing. "They are primitives," spat a corps general. "Children of a death world, fragile and weak." "They are dangerous," hissed a Velen commander. "Unpredictable, reckless. They will destroy us all." But beneath the anger was fear. Because even as they mocked humanity, old memories, returned memories of the strange species from the blue planet on the edge of the spiral arm, the species that had fought wars on their own death world and survived against all odds. The Council had spent centuries keeping Earth isolated, watching from a distance, mocking their struggles. But now, with the galaxy on its knees, the unthinkable had become their only choice. Across the stars, whispers spread. Will they really call the humans? Do they even exist anymore? If humanity answers, what will they bring? Billions waited for the decision. Meanwhile on Earth, deep beneath the Atlantic Ocean, alarms blared. A hidden command bunker, buried for centuries, roared to life. Long silent machines hummed. Walls glowed with red warning lights. Doors sealed shut as men and women in black uniforms ran to their stations. At the center of the chamber, Admiral Mara Saeed stood tall, her face lit by the flickering holograms of the dying galaxy. "Admiral said, Lieutenant Chen," his voice tight with disbelief. "The Council has summoned us." Mara's eyes narrowed. "So the myths end here, in the depths of the oceans." Shadows stirred. The water boiled as a colossal shape rose from the darkness. A hull of black steel, scarred and ancient, broke the surface with a roar that shook the waves. Towers rose from its back, glowing with blue light. Cannons the size of mountains turned toward the sky. The first human dreadnought, long buried in the sea, awakened as the storm raged around it. Soldiers stood on its decks in black armor, their helmets gleaming with lightning. They did not tremble. They did not speak. They only waited for the order to rise. Back on the Council spire, alien leaders stared in disbelief as images streamed live across the galaxy. Ships massive. Ships were rising from Earth's oceans, deserts, and mountains. From the poles, from the jungles, from canyons carved into stone. For centuries, humanity had hidden them, waiting. "This cannot be," whispered Counselor Drez, his three eyes wide. They were primitives. They were nothing, and yet there it was. The human fleet. On the ground. Billions of humans looked up as their skies lit with fire. They had lived in silence for centuries, told their world was ignored, mocked as fragile and unimportant. But now their true power revealed itself. Children pointed at the massive shadows breaking through the clouds. Farmers left their fields to watch as warships blotted out the sun. In cities, people filled the streets. Staring in awe and fear, the myths had been true all along. Inside the council chamber, silence fell. Finally, the Velen commander whispered, "If we summon them, they may not obey us. They may take everything." And from the shadows, Leira, the young Ilari diplomats, poke words that made every alien shiver. "If they fight for us, we may survive. If they fight against us, we will not." On the bridge of the dreadnought, Eidolon, Admiral Mara looked out over the stormy ocean as her ship climbed into the sky. She spoke softly. Her words carried through encrypted channels to every awakening human ship. "They called us last. They thought we were weak. They thought we were forgotten. But now, we rise." Her voice grew sharper, colder, echoing across every human channel. "This is Earth Command. Fleet ascend above the planet." Engines roared. Dozens of colossal ships erupted into orbit, their hulls glowing with fire. Fighters streaked into the sky. Smaller carriers followed, each one bristling with weapons never before seen. The alien council watched in silence. As the human armada spread its wings, for the first time in centuries, hope returned, but fear grew twice as fast. As the human fleet forms above Earth, a new transmission cuts through every alien channel. Admiral Marasade's face appears on the screens across the galaxy. Her eyes are calm, her voice sharp as a blade. "You summoned humanity. Now you will see what it means to survive." The chamber falls silent. The galaxy holds its breath. The council chamber shook with panic all across the galaxy. Broadcasts replayed the same impossible images. Colossal human warships rising from Earth's oceans and deserts, their hulls glowing with blue fire as they climbed into orbit. The alien leaders had laughed at humanity for centuries, mocking them as fragile. Now, those same leaders whispered in fear. "They were primitives," hissed a corps general, his wings rattling against his armor. "They hid this from us," spat a Zell noble, her scales flaring dark red. "They cannot be trusted," growled a Velen commander, his voice low and trembling. The chamber descended into chaos. Some demanded immediate attack on Earth before the fleet could grow stronger. Others begged for peace, terrified that humanity's wrath would fall on them next. Billions across alien worlds watched the live feed. Civilians whispered, soldiers clenched their fists, priests prayed to forgotten gods. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy feared a species it had once dismissed. The council's leader, Grand Arbiter Tovril, struck the crystal floor with his staff. The sound rang like thunder, silencing the chamber. "Enough," he bellowed. "This is no time for fear. They are human. They bleed as we bleed. They will serve us, or they will burn." His words carried authority, but even he could not hide the tremor in his voice. And then, the holograms flickered. A new signal forced its way into the chamber. Not Quor, not Velen, not Zell. Human, the holomage sharpened. A single human figure appeared, standing tall in black armor. His face was calm, his eyes hard as stone. He carried no weapon, yet his presence filled the chamber with more weight than 1,000 soldiers. Gasps echoed. Guards raised their weapons, claws and fangs bared. The human ignored them. He looked up at the council, unblinking, when he spoke. His voice was steady and sharp, carried across every alien world. "You summoned us. Now you will listen." Billions of aliens froze. The corps general hissed in outrage. "You dare speak as if you are equals?" The human's gaze cut toward him. "Equals?" His lips curled into the faintest smile. "We did not come here to be equals. We came because you are dying." The chamber erupted again. Shouts, curses, threats filled the air. But the human never flinched. His voice rose above the chaos. "You built your council on arrogance. You ruled by fear. Now fear has come for you. And you turn to us humans, the species you mocked as fragile for salvation." The words struck like knives. Even the proud Zell lowered their heads. Back on Earth, Admiral Mara Saeed watched from the bridge of the Eidolon. Her officers listened to the broadcast echoing across alien space. They looked terrified, whispered, "Ah!" "Chen." "As they should," Mara replied, her eyes cold. "They summoned us too late." In the council chamber, the human envoy stepped closer. His boots echoed against the marble floor. Alien guards flinched but did not move. He raised a hand. The holograms behind him shifted, showing fleets awakening across Earth, hundreds of hidden warships rising into orbit. Oceans boiled as dreadnoughts ascended. Ice caps shattered as titans broke free from their frozen prisons. The counselors gasped. Some screamed. Entire species watching across the stars felt their knees weaken. The myths were true. Humanity had been preparing all along. The envoy's voice cut through the panic. "You called us only when your armies failed. You begged for us when your empires burned. Do not mistake this for mercy. This is survival, and survival belongs to humanity." Silence followed. A silence so heavy it pressed on every chest. For the first time, the council could not answer. In the shadows of the chamber, Laura, the young Ilari diplomat, watched the human closely. Unlike the others, her eyes did not burn with anger or fear. They burned with recognition. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "They are not saviors. They are not conquerors. They are survivors." Suddenly, alarms blared. The chamber's ceiling flickered with fresh holograms from the frontier. Alien officers shouted, "Enemy fleets approaching. Outer colonies falling. They are already here." Panic exploded once more. Counselors shouted, demanded reinforcements, argued over whose fleets should respond. The human envoy stood unmoving, watching the chaos with cold eyes. Then slowly, he raised his hand again. "This is what you are without us," he said. His voice echoed like thunder. Panic, division, weakness. He leaned forward, his words sharp as blades, but with humanity. "You will see what it means to fight." Back aboard the Eidolon, Mara received the same frontier reports. Alien systems collapsing. Fleets erased. Worlds screaming for help. Her voice was steady as she gave her command. "Set course for the frontier. The council will not save them. We will," engines roared. The human fleet shifted formation. Blue light blazing from their drives as they turned toward alien space. In the council chamber, Grand Arbiter Tovril slammed his staff again. "This is madness. They will turn their fleets on us." The envoy met his gaze. For the first time, his expression hardened into steel. "We will turn our fleets where survival demands. And right now, survival demands we strike first." The human envoy's signal ends. The chamber trembles with fear. Above Earth, the human fleet jumps into the void, engines blazing as they vanish toward alien space. Billions across the galaxy watch in silence, knowing the humans are no longer myths. They're coming. The galaxy had always called them myths, stories whispered of a human fleet older than the council itself. Tales of colossal ships buried under Earth's oceans, hidden inside mountains, frozen beneath ice caps. Alien scholars mocked these legends, laughing that primitive humans could never build such marvels. But the myths were true. On Earth's poles, storms raged as the ground itself cracked. Ice that had slept for millennia groaned and shattered. Beneath it, vast chambers opened, glowing with ancient blue light. Then came the sound deep, metallic thunder that shook the skies, and through the blizzard, shadows rose. First one, then another. Towers of steel taller than cities, hulls carved with scars from forgotten wars, engines that had not burned in ages. Warships. Human warships. 10 titans rose from the ice, their hulls dripping with frost, their cannons humming with power. On their sides etched into black metal. One word glowed in white earth. The galaxy froze. Billions across alien worlds watched the feeds in stunned silence. Civilians gasped. Priests fell to their knees. Soldiers whispered curses. "They are not new. whispered a court diplomat, trembling. They were always there. Impossible, spat a Zell commander, though his voice shook. No species hides such power. They waited, whispered Lee, the young Ilari. Her silver eyes widened as she understood. They waited for this moment. Back on Earth, Admiral Mara Sade stood on the bridge of the Eidolon. Her face was lit by the glow of the rising Titans. Her officers stared, awed across their faces. Admiral said, Lieutenant Chen, his voice low, the myths, they're real. Mara did not look away. Legends are just warnings the galaxy refuses to believe. Now they will see why humans never forget. She raised her hand, her voice sharp, signaled them. Awaken the Armada. One by one, the Titans answered. Their cannons turned, glowing with white-blue fire. Their shields flared to life, rippling with energy that bent the void. The ground shook as more ships tore themselves free, smaller destroyers, carriers, and fighters swarming into orbit around their colossal guardians. The lost Armada was awake. Alien scouts tried to flee, desperate to warn their fleets. But human fighters streaked after them, engines howling like predators. Within seconds, the alien craft vanished in fire. The message was clear. No secrets would leave Earth. On alien worlds. Riots broke out. Some demanded their leaders surrender before humanity's wrath fell on them. Others cursed the Council for hiding the truth. Still others prayed to humans as if they were gods returned from death. The galaxies. Balance had shattered inside the Council chamber. Chaos returned. This cannot stand, screamed a Velen general. If they unleash those ships, none of us are safe. We must strike first, cried a Zell noble. We must negotiate, said another, trembling. Or we are finished. But Lyra whispered to herself, You already are finished. Back aboard the Eidolon. Mara studied the galactic maps. Red icons blinked where alien fleets massed. The World Eater itself loomed at the edge of space. Chen's hand shook as he read the reports. Admiral, every alien empire is moving toward us. Hundreds of thousands of ships. We are outnumbered 100 to 1. Mara's lips curled into a thin smile. Then, they are exactly where we want them. The Armada rose higher, across Earth's skies. Civilians watched in awe as shadows of steel blotted out the stars. Children cheered. Families wept. For generations, they had been told humanity was weak, fragile, ignored. Now, they saw the truth with their own eyes. The skies were filled with humanity's answer. Alien fleets drew closer. Scouts relayed images of the awakening Titans. Panic swept through their command ships. Admirals shouted contradictory orders. Some wanted to strike Earth immediately. Others begged for retreat, but it was already too late, because the human fleet was not waiting. On the Eidolon, Admiral Mara raised her voice. All ships prepare for first strike. We will not wait for their hammer to fall. We are the hammer. The fleet roared into motion. Engines flared. Cannons charged. Fighters swarmed into formation. The galaxy's broadcasts shook with static as billions tuned in. They expected to see humanity crushed. Instead, they watched a predator bare its teeth. The lost Armada formed into a spearhead. 10 Titans at the front, dreadnoughts behind them, destroyers and fighters circling like wolves. For the first time in history, the galaxy saw humanity not as prey, but as hunters, and then the void trembled. Alien fleets blinked into orbit. Dozens, hundreds, thousands. The skies filled with warships of every kind, sleek Velen destroyers. Massive core carriers, jagged Zell cruisers. Their weapons lit the darkness. Like a second sun, the galaxy held its breath. Admiral Mara's eyes narrowed. Let them come. The human armada surges forward. Just as the first wave of the united alien fleet arrives above Earth, the skies are packed with warships, the void about to ignite in fire. Humanity's titans faced the galaxy's fury. The skies above Earth broke open. One moment, there was silence. The next, The void was filled with fire and steel. Alien fleets blinked into orbit by the thousands of Ellen destroyers with spiked hulls. Core carriers bristling with swarm bays, jagged Zell war cruisers glowing with crimson engines. They came as one, united by fear, determined to erase humanity before it could rise. From the ground, humans looked up and saw the heavens covered in alien shadows. The sky itself seemed to crack under the weight of the invaders, and at the heart of it all, the human fleet waited. The lost Armada stood ready, its 10 titans gleaming with blue fire, dreadnoughts circling them like wolves, fighters swarming in tight formation. On the Eidolon, Admiral Mara Site stood tall, her face calm as the storm of death formed above her world. "They believe numbers will save them," she said. Her voice was steady, cold. "They will learn numbers mean nothing." For hours, alien transmissions echoed across the galaxy. "This is the final strike. Erase the Death Worlder's end." Then before they spread, civilians across alien worlds tuned in, expecting to watch humanity crushed. Some cheered, others prayed, but none looked away. The first volley came from the aliens. Tens of thousands of cannons lit the void, streaking toward Earth like falling stars. The night sky turned red. Fire raining down, the galaxy whispered, "It is over." But humanity did not flinch. The titans of the lost Armada moved as one. Shields flared. Cannons charged. Engines roared like thunder. And then the human fleet fired. Beams of white-blue energy, brighter than suns, tore through alien lines. A Velen destroyer split in half. A core carrier exploded in fire, its swarm burning before it could launch. Zell cruisers shattered under precision strikes. The void screamed with light. On the ground, Earth shook with the roar of engines. People in shelters cried out as the sky lit like day. Children stared at the blazing streaks across the heavens. Civilians whispered the same word over and over: fight. Inside the council chamber on Valer Prime, panic replaced pride. "This cannot be," shouted a corps general. "They should already be ash. They are breaking our fleets apart," spat a Zell noble, slamming his claws against the table. "They fight like Death Worlders," muttered the Velen commander, his scaled fists trembling. Lar, the young Ilari diplomat, whispered words that chilled everyone near her. "They are not fighting to conquer. They are fighting to survive. That is why you cannot win." Back in orbit, the battle raged. Human fighters dove into alien swarms, weaving between blasts, cutting through enemy wings like blades. Bombers darted past defenses, dropping payloads that ripped through hulls. The Titans advanced, slow but unstoppable, their cannons tearing gaps in the alien wall. Everywhere, alien ships exploded. Yet still more poured in. Human losses mounted. Carriers burned. Cruisers vanished in flame. Pilots screamed last words before their voices were lost to static. But the Armada never broke formation. On the Eidolon, alarms blared. The ship rocked under fire, sparks showering the bridge. "Admiral," Chen shouted, gripping the console, "we are outnumbered 10-1. We can't hold forever." Mara's eyes stayed locked on the chaos outside. Her voice cut through the fear. "Then we do not hold. We strike." Humanity does not wait for mercy. The Eidolon led the charge. Engines blazed. The Titans surged into the heart of the alien fleet, cannons firing at point-blank range. The rest of the Armada followed, smashing into the enemy like a tidal wave of steel. Alien formations shattered. Fleets scattered. Admirals screamed in disbelief as humans, so few in number, cut through their forces with precision and fury. The galaxy gasped. The humans were not fragile. The humans were predators. But then, the void darkened. From the edge of the battlefield, a shadow larger than moons appeared. At first, it seemed like an eclipse, blotting out the stars. Then lights flickered across its surface, thousands of glowing cannons. Engines burning with crimson fire, the Council's hidden weapon, the World Eater, on every alien world. Civilians froze as its colossal shape filled their screens. Soldiers trembled. Priests fell silent. Even the council chamber went still, fear spreading like ice. The monster drifted forward, size dwarfing even the human titans. Weapons hummed with power, shaking the void. "This is the end," whispered a corps general. "No ship survives the World Eater," hissed a Zell noble. "This is why we built it," muttered the Velen commander. To erase Deathworlders, on the Eidolon officers stared in horror as the readings poured in. Its mass, its power. Chen's voice cracked. "We've never seen anything like it. If it fires, Earth is gone." The bridge fell silent. Soldiers looked at Mara, their fear clear in their eyes, but Mara stood unshaken. Her voice was steady as stone. "So, the galaxy brings its monster." She turned toward her fleet. Her eyes burned with fire. "Then let us show them what monsters truly are." Part 4 ends with humanity's Armada winning the first great battle only for the World Eater, the Council's ultimate weapon to arrive. Its cannons primed to erase Earth itself. The shadow of the World Eater swallowed the stars. Alien. Fleets scattered to make room for it, their admirals whispering in fear, even as they cheered. The monster's surface glowed with crimson light, its cannons humming, its engines louder than thunder. Entire continents could fit inside its armored frame. On alien worlds, civilians watched in silence. Even the boldest commentators fell quiet. Every eye turned to Earth, every voice whispered the same thing: "This is the end." On the Eidolon, alarms screamed. The bridge shuddered under incoming fire. Sparks rained from broken panels. Officers struggled to stay at their posts. Lieutenant Chen's voice cracked as he read the scans. "Admiral Dezin, it's charging. Energy levels rising past any known weapon. If it fires, Earth is gone. We are all gone." The bridge went still. For a moment, even the hardened human crew felt fear. But Admiral Mara Saeed's eyes never wavered. Her voice was calm, sharp as steel. "Fear belongs to them, not to us." In the council chamber on Valor Prime, chaos reigned. "It will erase them," shouted a corps general. "The humans have no chance," sneered a Zell noble. "At last they will learn their place," growled a Velen commander. But Laura, the young Ilari diplomat, sat silent. Her silver eyes stayed fixed on the glowing image of the World Eater. She saw what the others did not, the humans. Still fighting, still pushing forward, even as doom closed in. And deep in her heart, something shifted. Back on the battlefield, the World Eater loomed closer. Its crimson core blazed, pulling wreckage and smaller ships into its orbit, crushing them like insects. Human fighters struggled to escape, many vanishing into the glow. The galaxy watched in dread. The countdown to annihilation had begun, and then something unexpected happened. A signal cut through the static. Not from Earth, not from the human fleet. From the council chamber itself. The human comms officer froze. "Admiral, incoming transmission. Origin, Valor Prime." Mara's brow furrowed. "Put it through." The voice that came was soft, trembling, but urgent. "Humans, listen, the council has lied to you. The World Eater is not their only weapon. They built something worse. A hidden fleet waits behind you. If you fight here, you will be surrounded." The crew stared at one another in disbelief. Chen turned sharply to Mara. "Admiral, that's an alien voice." The transmission continued. "I am Ura of the Iolari. I do not want your extinction. The council will sacrifice us all to erase you. You must be ready. You are walking into their trap." The bridge fell silent. A warning. From an alien, for centuries the council had mocked and ignored humanity. They called them fragile, primitive, unworthy. And now one of their own broke ranks to save them? "Why help us?" one officer demanded. "Is this another trick?" Another snapped, but Mara listened closely. The voice carried no arrogance, no malice, only fear. "In truth, she risks everything to speak," Mara said quietly. "That alone means the danger is real." In the council chamber, Lara's hand shook. She knew the risk. If they discovered her betrayal, Her people would call her a traitor, but she could not stay silent. She had seen the humans fight, not for conquest, not for power, but for survival, and something inside her whispered, they deserved the chance my people never had. Back on the Idealan, the warning divided the crew. We cannot trust her, shouted one officer. What if it's a trap? Another argued, but Mara's voice cut through the fear. Trust words. Never. Trust actions. If she wanted us gone, she would have stayed silent. Prepare for both outcomes. We face the World Eater, and whatever waits behind it. Her crew nodded, resolve hardening. Humanity had faced worse odds before. They would again. The World Eater's cannon neared full charge. The void glowed crimson, brighter than suns. Admiral Chen shouted, his voice trembling. It's ready to fire. The ship shook violently as smaller alien fleets closed in. Human cruisers burned. Fighters were torn apart. The Armada was being crushed from all sides. Mara's gaze stayed fixed on the monster. Then let them see, she said coldly. Humanity does not vanish in silence. We roar, her command spread across the fleet. All ships forward. Strike the beast before it breathes. The Armada surged. Dreadnoughts roared into the World Eater's defenses, their cannons blasting at point-blank range. Fighters dove into the glow, some sacrificing themselves to pierce its armor. Explosions rippled across the monster's surface. For a moment, hope returned. The World Eater trembled under the storm. Its shields flickered. Its hull cracked. The galaxy gasped. Perhaps humanity could break it. And then the trap was sprung. Sensors screamed. Shadows tore open behind the Armada. Thousands of alien warships uncloaked, engines blazing, cannons locked on humanity's rear. The crew froze. Chen's voice cracked with horror. Admiral. She was right. We're surrounded. Mara stood tall, her eyes burning as the void lit red from two sides. So, the galaxy thinks this is our end. Her voice rose. Steady and cold, cutting across every human channel, then let the galaxy remember. We do not fall quietly. We fall fighting. Part 5 ends with humanity charging the World Eater, only to be surrounded by a massive hidden fleet from behind. Humanity is now trapped between the greatest weapon ever built and thousands of enemy ships. The void was a cage in front of the human fleet. The World Eater loomed like a mountain of steel and fire. Its surface splitting open, crimson cannons glowing brighter than suns. Behind them, the hidden fleet of the Council swarmed into position. A wall of jagged alien warships closing fast. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy's hunters had cornered their prey, but humanity was not trembling. On the Eidolon's bridge, red alarms painted every face in blood-colored light. The hull shook with every impact, each blast echoing like thunder. Panels sparked, filling the air with smoke. Officers shouted numbers, damage reports, warnings, but their admiral stood silent. Lieutenant Chun's voice cracked. Admiral, they've surrounded us. The World Eater is at full charge. Earth is locked in its sights. If it fires everything, our families, our oceans, our history, it's gone. The crew stared at Admiral Mara Saeed. She didn't flinch. They think this is the end, she said calmly, her voice cutting through the chaos. But humanity does not end. Not like this. She turned toward the star map, watching the red circle of enemy fleets close around them. Ready all weapons? Hold the line. The crew straightened, fear burning into steel. The countdown had begun. The World Eater's cannon glowed brighter, a sphere of crimson light gathering in its core. Its energy field sucked in debris and broken ships, crushing them to dust. The battlefield fell silent. Alien fleets held position, waiting for the weapon to fire. Every alien eye in the galaxy was fixed on the broadcast. Civilians leaned forward, breaths caught. Priests whispered prayers. Generals clenched their claws and whispered, "This is victory." The humans were still. Their ships hung in the void like shadows of defiance. The silence grew heavier. Then, without warning, a A new signal cut across every channel. The bridge crew froze as the consoles lit up. The voice was deep, resonant, impossible to ignore. "This is Earth Command." Every officer turned in shock. Chen's eyes widened. "Admiral, that's impossible. Earth Command was destroyed centuries ago." But the voice continued, calm and sharp, reaching across every ship, every world, every corner of the galaxy. "We have heard the silence. We have seen the enemy. Humanity endures. Omega Protocol. Engage." The Earth shook. In the deserts, the sands split open, revealing titanic cannons buried for millennia. In the mountains, hidden fortresses roared to life, power cores burning with blue light. In the oceans, entire islands rose, revealing launch bays filled with hidden fleets. The planet itself had been armed. Humanity had never been defenseless. They had only been waiting. The World Eater fired. A beam of crimson light erupted from its core. Vast enough to swallow Earth, the energy tore through space, vaporizing human ships caught in its path, shattering alien fleets unlucky enough to stand between. The sky above Earth turned blood red, the oceans boiling as the blast scorched the atmosphere. Billions across the galaxy gasped. On alien worlds, crowds screamed in triumph. "The Death Worlders are finished." They cheered. But then Earth answered from every hidden cannon. From every mountain and ocean fortress, blue-white beams erupted into the void. They struck the crimson storm head-on, colliding in a blaze that shook the stars. The beams clashed like gods in the heavens. The void itself seemed to rip apart. Light burned brighter than 1,000 suns. Entire fleets were thrown, spinning by the shockwaves. And in that storm, the World Eater staggered. Its armor cracked wider. Its shields collapsed. Its massive frame groaned. For the first time, the galaxy's invincible monster was wounded. On the Eidolon, the crew cheered through smoke and fire. "Admiral, the World Eater's shields are down." Chen shouted, eyes blazing with hope. Mara's gaze stayed cold, sharp. "Then we strike where it hurts." Humanity does not wait. Her command rang across the fleet. Dreadnoughts opened fire with everything they had. Missiles screamed into the World Eater's wounds. Fighters dove into its cracks, detonating their cores. The monster shook under the storm. The galaxy watched in disbelief. The Council had promised annihilation. But the humans fragile, forgotten humans were tearing down the greatest weapon ever built. On Valor Prime, the Council chamber shook with shouts. "This cannot be," screamed a Zell noble. "Our fleets are dying with theirs," cried a corps general. "They were supposed to vanish." But Lara, the Ilari diplomat, whispered, "They will not vanish. They will not bow. This is what it means to be human." Her words cut through the noise, though many ignored them. Fear spread across the chamber like fire. For the first time in centuries, the Council felt powerless. The World Eater convulsed under fire. Its hull tore apart, glowing cracks spreading like veins of fire. Alien commanders screamed that victory was lost. Human officers cheered as the Titans closed in. But then sensors screamed again. On the Eidolon, Chen gasped. "Admiral, the core is still active. It's not dying, it's changing." The Council feeds showed it too. From the monster's broken body, new towers rose, glowing with unholy light. The cannon retracted, placed by dozens more. The World Eater was not falling, it was transforming. Mara stared at the screens, her eyes cold and unblinking. Around her, the crew trembled, fear filling the air. The monster's new form spread across the void. Larger, brighter, deadlier. And then, as its new weapons began to hum, Mara spoke one final order. "Prepare for what comes next. This is not their weapon anymore. It's ours. Or it is our grave." Part 6 ends with Earth's hidden weapons revealed. The World Eater wounded, but suddenly transforming into something even more powerful. Humanity is surrounded, trapped. The galaxy waits terrified to see if the Death Worlders can survive. The void itself seemed to groan. The World Eater, already scarred by humanity's fury, did not collapse. Instead, its cracked armor split wider. Shards of burning metal peeled away like dead skin, revealing a second layer beneath, sleeker, darker, alive with crimson veins of light. Its new cannons unfolded like wings. Thousands of glowing barrels locking on targets across the battlefield. It was no longer a warship. It was something worse. A predator built to consume civilizations. The Council had called it the safeguard of order, but to the galaxy watching in silence, it looked like a god of death, above Earth. The night sky no longer existed. Instead, there was fire. Wreckage from fallen fleets burned in orbit, streaking across the atmosphere like meteors. Oceans boiled. Cities shook. Every shelter echoed with the roar of planetary cannons firing into the heavens. On the streets, civilians looked up through shattered glass domes and torn skies. They could see it, a shadow so massive it blotted out the stars. The World Eater. Mothers clutched their children tighter. Fathers clenched fists. No one looked away, because in those red-lit skies, the future of humanity was being written. On alien worlds. The broadcasts continued. Civilians who once mocked Earth now trembled. Markets collapsed. Armies muttered in fear. Priests screamed prophecies of the Death Worlder's return. In the Galactic Council Hall, chaos consumed the leaders. Impossible, shouted a Zell warlord, his scaled claws scraping the table. The World Eater cannot fall. Hissed a corps general. Then why is it bleeding? Demanded another, pointing at the feed. Because the monster was bleeding. Human dreadnoughts had rammed its shields, their sacrifice tearing holes in the giant's armor. Earth's planetary cannons still fired, carving glowing scars across its surface. The World Eater staggered. It screamed. On the bridge of the Eidolon, Admiral Mara Saeed stood unshaken. Though her ship burned. Report, she said, her voice calm. Chen's hand shook as he read the scans. Admiral, the World Eater's shields are collapsing. Its armor is failing. We are breaking it. The crew erupted in cheers. For a moment, hope burned brighter than fear, but Mara did not smile. She stared at the monster, her eyes dark. Not yet, she whispered. It's not done. The World Eater's scream grew louder, vibrating through the void. Then silence, its core flared like a star, brighter than ever before. The cracks in its armor did not signal death, they were openings. From within, new engines unfolded. Weapons the size of cities emerged, glowing with unholy light. The galaxy gasped. The council chamber fell silent. The World Eater had not been wounded. It had been reborn. And then the second half of the trap snapped shut behind the human fleet. Thousands of alien warships decloaked at once, forming a wall of fire and steel. Cannons locked on the Armada's rear. The tactical display on the Eidolon turned red, filled with enemy signals. Chen's voice cracked. Admiral, they've boxed us in completely. We can't run. A silence fell over the bridge. Mara's gaze stayed fixed on the glowing monster ahead. They think this cage will hold us. Her voice rose, calm but sharp, cutting through fear. Then let them see what happens when you trap humanity. The World Eater fired again. A crimson beam split the void. Carving through space like the blade of a god, human cruisers turned to fire and ash. Alien ships unlucky enough to be caught in its path were vaporized instantly. The Eidolon rocked, shields barely holding. Sparks burst across the bridge, lighting Mara's face in flashes of fire. Still the fleet advanced. Damaged ships turned themselves into weapons, ramming enemy cruisers and detonating their cores. Fighters with empty magazines dove into enemy carriers. Vanishing in brilliant bursts of flame, every human death bought a second more for Earth. On alien worlds, silence spread. Civilians who had once cheered the Council's war now watched in horror. Their fleets were being destroyed alongside humanity. Their so-called safeguard, the World Eater, was not protecting them. It was tearing the galaxy apart. For the first time in history, billions whispered the same truth. Maybe the humans were right. Inside the council chamber, voices cracked with fear. "This is madness," shouted one delegate. "We will all burn," screamed another. "They told us the World Eater was our salvation." Lara rose from her seat. Her silver eyes shone like fire. "You built your monster to kill them," she said, her voice sharp and clear. "But it will not stop with humanity. It will consume us all. You summoned predators in, now you face the end." The council stared at her in shock. On the Eidolon, Mara stood tall, her black armor glowing in the red light of the World Eater's fury. "All ships," she said calmly, "form the spear. We break through, or we die here." The Lost Armada shifted formation. 10 Titans at the front, shields overlapping, smaller ships circling like wolves. Engines roared as they pushed toward the World Eater. The monster's cannons locked on, glowing like suns. The alien fleet behind them charged. Humanity stood between two storms. Mara's voice cut across every human channel, steady and cold. "This is our moment. This is why we were born on a death world. This is why we endured. Hold nothing back. We strike at the heart of the monster." The crew roared with her. Fighters surged forward. Dreadnoughts opened fire. Earth's planetary cannons unleashed another storm of blue-white fire. Cutting into the giant, the void became fire and thunder. And then sensors screamed again. Chen's face went pale. "Admiral, the World Eater's new core? It's not just a weapon. It's a gateway." On the screens, the monster's core split open, revealing a swirling abyss of light. From within, new shadows began to emerge, shapes larger than anything seen. Before, the World Eater was not just a warship. It was a door the void had never burned so bright the shattered wrecks of alien cruisers tumbled like falling stars. The sky above Earth was a storm of fire, debris, and screaming metal. Yet the real terror had only just begun. From the cracked shell of the World Eater, a new light burned. Crimson and white twisting together, forming a swirling abyss that opened into nothingness. It was not a weapon. It was a gate, and from that gate, shadows began to emerge. Massive shapes slid out of the abyss, ships larger than the World Eater itself. They were alive, their hulls shifting like muscle and bone, their eyes burning with cold light. They were not of the Council. They were not of humanity. They were something else. Something older. Something worse. On the Eidolon, the bridge was chaos. "Admiral," Chen shouted, his voice breaking. "Multiple contacts. Not Council ships. Unknown origin. Count. I can't even count. They're still coming." On the screens, the shadows multiplied. Dozens. Hundreds. Each one as large as a city, bristling with claws of living metal. Their bodies pulsed like beating hearts, black as void. With veins of fire crawling across them, the Council fleets froze in silence. The Corps generals stopped screaming. The Zell warlords went pale. Even the Velen, proud and unyielding, trembled because the truth was clear now. The World Eater had never been built to destroy humanity. It had been built to hold. The door closed, in the Council chamber on Valor Prime. Chaos turned to horror. "You lied to us." One counselor screamed at the Grand Arbiter. "You said the World Eater was ours," shouted another. "What have you unleashed?" The Grand Arbiter's voice shook as he slammed his staff against the floor. It was necessary. The monsters beyond the gate. They were never meant to be freed. Humanity was meant to remain in silence. It was the only way to keep them contained. Gasps spread through the chamber. Billions across the galaxy heard his words broadcast live. The Council had feared humanity, not because they were weak, but because humanity's world had been the lock on the cage, on the Eidolon. Mara Saeed stood frozen, her dark eyes fixed on the monstrous fleet spilling from the gate. So that's why she whispered. That's why they feared us. Not because of what we are, but because of what we guard. Chen's voice was tight with horror. "Admiral, what do we do? If those things spread, they will burn the galaxy," Mara said. Her voice was calm, but every word carried steel. "And the Council will beg us to save them." The same council that wanted us dead. The crew stared at her. The choice was clear. Fight the council's fleets behind them, or turn and face the monsters pouring from the gate. The council fleets opened fire on the humans, their cannons blazing. At the same time, the creatures from beyond the gate screamed into the void, tearing into the nearest alien ships. Valon destroyers crumbled under living claws. Core swarms vanished in fire. Zell cruisers were ripped apart like paper. The galaxy watched in horror as the council's great unity shattered. On the bridge, Chen turned to Mara. "We can still break through. We can escape if we run now." Mara shook her head. Her eyes never left the abyss. "If we run, the galaxy dies. If we stay, humanity dies." The silence on the bridge was heavy. Then Mara spoke again, her voice like thunder, signaled the fleet. "Our purpose was never to flee. Our purpose was never to hide. Our purpose was to stand between the galaxy and the dark." Across every human ship, the message spread. Soldiers bleeding in corridors lifted their heads. Pilots in burning cockpits clenched their fists. Civilians hiding deep underground heard the words echo through the shelters. "This is Earth's command," Mara's voice declared. "For centuries they called us fragile. For centuries they mocked us. For centuries they feared us." She paused. The battlefield shook with fire and death, but humanity was not made to conquer. We were made to endure. We were made to guard the flame when all others fall. Her eyes hardened, and if the galaxy wishes to live, it will live because we stand. All ships follow me. We strike the gate. The lost Armada turned. Not toward the council fleets that had betrayed them, not toward the World Eater that glowed like a newborn sun, but toward the gate. Engines roared. 10 Titans surged forward, followed by every surviving human ship. Fighters screamed past, weaving through enemy fire. Bombers dived into the abyss. The galaxy gasped. Billions watching the broadcast realized the truth. Humanity was not striking for revenge. Humanity was striking to seal the gate. The World Eater spun, its new weapons locking onto the Eidolon. Cannons flared, filling the void with crimson fire. Alien fleets, too late to retreat, were torn apart by the creatures spilling from the gate. But the humans pressed forward. The Eidolon led the charge, its engines burning brighter than any star. On its deck, soldiers in black armor stood steady. Faces lit with fire and steel, Admiral Chen said softly, his voice trembling, "If we go through that gate, we may never return." Mara's eyes never left the abyss. Humanity was born in the fire of a death world. If we must burn again to save the galaxy, then so be it. The Eidolon cut through the storm, blasting a path. Dreadnoughts followed, their cannons tearing into the living monsters. Fighters rammed into glowing wings, detonating in bursts of light from Earth. The planetary cannons fired one last time, their beams striking the gate itself. The abyss flickered, unstable, shuddering as if resisting the humans. Defiance. But the monsters kept coming. Hundreds. Thousands. Their shadows filled the void. Part 7 ends with the revelation: the World Eater is not only a weapon, but a gateway. From its blazing core, something else, something even greater than the galaxy's nightmare begins to emerge. Humanity's enemies cheer, but Mara's eyes narrow. The true enemy may not be the Council at all.